What are the keys to Kansas taking down West Virginia, and who are the players that have to step up for the Jayhawks to do it?
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks, and thank you to you for making it your first listen every day. Thank you so much to the everydayers catching each and every episode of the show, and whether you're finding us on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe, or on anywhere you get your audio platform, thank you for joining us on another edition of Locked On Jayhawks. We're talking Kansas keys to take down the West Virginia Mountaineers in Lawrence on Saturday night. We're going to get to our players to watch, who has to step up for KU to get that done, who are some players to watch out for on the West Virginia side of things, a little FanDuel Friday at the end of the episode here as well. Before we get into any of that, today's episode of the show is brought to you by Mazda. With Mazda, like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward Mazda Move and Be Moved. So if you missed it earlier this week, we had a injury report episode, a little bonus episode on Locked On Jayhawks. I will briefly mention that again, that it's good news for KU overall that Joseph Sipp sounds like he's going to be making his debut. Gage Keys sounds like he's going to be back for KU. Sounds like some guys who have been playing through injury, a la, Bengali Kamara, for instance, or Bryson Canty, as they've been kind of working back, are going to be now in better shape for KU. And that's kind of what the initial injury report told us for KU. So that is all good news coming into this game. Now, what Kansas has to do with that, I think it helps them in a lot of ways, because if you have, a team in West Virginia with Rich Rod who wants to run the football, your linebackers, and they throw a lot of, short, quick passes, your linebackers are going to be tested kind of sideline to sideline in this game. And so having another linebacker and playing against a team who plays at a very high tempo, they're number 2 in the country in seconds per play. So they're snapping the ball really quickly between plays. That means the depth is going to be tested. That means you have to have quality backups who are able to come in and make plays. And so having a guy like Joseph Sipp, who can, fill in for Trey Lathan or Bengali Kamara, having a guy like Gage Keys, who just adds to that defensive line depth that you've already accrued, having another receiver in Bryson Canty that can help you against a good running defense and defense overall. These are all, and obviously there's more, good injury news there for KU, but these are all good things that can help them with some of the keys to the game for KU. I will say, to me, KU wins the game if they have a good tackling game. That's one of two things that I want to mention here, that if Kansas does have that good tackling game, I think they're going to be in good shape. When you look at the West Virginia running game again, you think of Rich Rodriguez, you think of the quarterback wants to run. Now, Marchiol isn't the biggest runner in the world, but he'll still scoot it a little bit. It's something you still have to worry about at least a little bit. And if they do bring in one of the other two quarterbacks, they will really be good runners. You look at the running back having 140 rushing yards against Pittsburgh. You look at typically Rich Rodriguez teams are really good running the football. From that perspective, Kansas, coming off a 24 missed tackle game against Missouri, has to tackle better against West Virginia. And something else that I think adds to this isn't just the West Virginia running game, it's the West Virginia passing game. The Mountaineers complete a lot of short passes. They have a high completion percentage. Their quarterback, Marchiol, he's completing 72% of his passes this year. Now, a lot of them are underneath shorter passes, but Kansas actually ranks 124th in the country right now in defensive completion percentage. So they're giving up a lot of completions at the other end. Now, against Missouri, they weren't all short completions. Some of them were downfield. But point being, if you have a team who's completing a lot of passes against a team who's giving up a lot of completions, what does that mean? A lot of those short, quick routes that West Virginia's been throwing probably going to continue to be completed in a game like this, which means if they catch a little 2-3 yard pass, it's on you to make the tackle, right? Make that 2 or 3 yard pass a 3 or 4 yard gain. Make that throw to the line of scrimmage a 1 yard gain. Or make a tackle right away. It doesn't just come from one player. Yes, it'd be nice if that one player doesn't miss the tackle, but something DK McDonald mentioned earlier this week was the missed tackles are going to happen if we have a lot of hats around the football. It's going to mitigate it, because it's one of those things where it's if you have 4 guys tackling football, if one guy missed a tackle, it's not a big deal. Because how many extra yards are they going to get if 4 guys are tackling football? Versus if one guy's tackling football and he misses the tackle, it could be a touchdown, right? So there's some differences there, and we'll see how KU responds in that area. But if they can have a good tackling game, I think I feel good about them, very limiting the West Virginia offense in a lot of ways. And if you can limit an offense that runs tempo, it puts their defense in a bind and keeps them on the field and can tire them out in a hurry. The other big one, Kansas wins, I think, if the offensive line can hold up in pass pro. I'm not even saying this has to be like, an A-plus game for the KU pass blocking against West Virginia. It just can't be something that takes over the game for the Mountaineers. Mountaineers coming into this one tied second in the country in total sacks. And now they add Jimmori Robinson to the fold. Robinson had 10.5 sacks at UTSA a season ago. He had a bunch of pressures. We're going to talk about him later in players to watch. He's a very impressive pass rusher. Now, Kansas is 36th nationally in sacks per pass attempt. So they've been pretty good at avoiding those sacks. But if you look at like their Pro Football Focus grades that rank them closer to like the 80s or 90s in pass blocking grade, it tells you that a lot of those sacks are being avoided just by Jalon's mobility and scramble ability. So for one, he's going to have to be on his game in that regard. But for two, it means Kansas needs to do better there. And yes, part of that is tanked down by the Missouri game, where you had some tough moments. You had some good moments in that game, though, too. But also even in the Fresno State game. The Fresno State game, there were a lot of hits on Jalon Daniels. And yes, the Wagner game was really good, but how much of that was improvement from the first game of the season? How much of that was just your plain Wagner, which was a much easier opponent at that point in time? So I think if Kansas can hold up, I think Ohio got sacked twice in that game against West Virginia. If you get sacked twice in this game, that might be an okay number for you to live at. But if they have 4 or 5 sacks, or maybe it is only 2 sacks, but they're continuously blowing up plays, forcing you to throw the ball away, or Jalon's having to run and he can only get 1 or 2 yards on a scramble because they're expecting it and the QB spy it and they're able to get that pressure, that is where a big issue comes about for KU in this game. So I think if they can do those 2 things, though, they'll feel okay. Now, what about Kansas covering? So right now, as of time of recording, KU is 13.5-point favorites on FanDuel. We'll get to our FanDuel Friday later on in the show. It'll be one thing for them to win. How do they cover? How do they win decisively in this game? Well, I think beyond those 2 things they need to win, they have to find the running game again, right? If you're going to win a game close versus winning a game big, you're going to have to run the football where you're able to ice the game away and maybe punch in that extra touchdown. And Kansas wasn't able to find the running game against Missouri, but it was good in the first 2 games. Now, the thing that's really hurt the Kansas running game, I think the most to this point, has been a lack of explosive plays. They're not getting those big breakaway runs. And I guess in the Missouri game, it was a little bit of everything didn't work. But did you know Kansas ranks 11th nationally right now in offensive line run push? So like they are getting good yardage from the offensive line pushing forward. And yes, in the Missouri game it wasn't very good. I think on the season they're a little over 5 yards per offensive line run carry. In the Missouri game it was like 1 point something, but it was only like half a yard lower than what Missouri had, and Missouri trumped you in a big way. So a lot of this is on the skill guys to just run the ball better for KU. Now, Missouri put a lot of emphasis on trying to bring safeties up into the box. That made it harder for the running backs and for Jalon Daniels to run. We'll see what West Virginia does. If that is the answer, then KU is going to have to hit them deep a couple times to try to, push that pressure off. But West Virginia currently ranks 12th nationally in yards allowed per carry. They are 15th in the country at limiting explosive runs. So this is not going to be easy. But if Kansas can get back to the team we've been so accustomed to in the Lance Leipold era, a strong running football team, and you do that in addition to some of the other things you're good at as well, then that's one avenue I think you could cover the spread in addition to winning. I also think winning the turnover battle would go a long way. Right now, Kansas is -1 on the season in turnovers for, minus turnovers forced, I guess. West Virginia, meanwhile, has forced 6 turnovers this year. So they're getting 2 per game. Can you hold on the football and can you force 1 or 2 from their side of things? And then the other one that I think would lead to this being, this isn't even like a Kansas thing. It's a West Virginia thing. Can West Virginia replicate their energy? You're talking about a Kansas team that's playing on Saturday night. They've got a blackout game. They've got coming off a bye week, like you're coming off a loss, so you're chomping at the bit. West Virginia, meanwhile, you could argue their win against Pittsburgh is going to give them extra momentum. You could also argue that winning a game like that, as emotional as it was for everybody involved and the rivalry there and the comeback that it took, did they expend too much energy and now they're going to have trouble getting off the mat coming into this game? That would be a way that, if they don't play their A game, if they play their C game because they're a little bit down or they have a slow start because of that, that would be a way for Kansas to be able to find that cover on the spread. All right, let's get to some players to watch, including for Kansas and West Virginia. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for joining us on LOJ, and today's episode of the show is brought to you by Mazda. Moving the game forward, for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, honestly, it's the KU trainers. We talked a little bit about earlier this week on a bonus episode, the injury report for Kansas. It looks really good. Joseph Sipp probably going to make his KU debut this week. Gage Key is going to make his debut for the season for KU this week. Some of the guys who had injury designations weren't on that list. So it seems to be the KU trainers killed it this week in getting ready for the West Virginia game and moved Kansas forward off the bye week for their final push into Big 12 play. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's episode is also brought to you by Wayfair. The weather's cooling down. The days are getting shorter. And that has me wanting to make my home feel even cozier, right? And when it comes to cozifying your space this fall, Wayfair is the place to go. Wayfair has everything you need to set the mood for the season, whether it's comfy recliners, warm bedding, autumn decor, maybe you want to dress your house up for Halloween or for Christmas, or even an espresso machine so you can make your favorite latte, pumpkin spice it up at home. It's the perfect time to set up your home for the fall so you can enjoy cozy nights in with family and friends. Cozify your space with Wayfair's curated collection of easy, affordable fall updates. From comfy recliners to cozy bedding and autumn decor, you'll find it all for way less at Wayfair.com. That's Wayfair.com, Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Don't forget to check out Locked On College Football. Get you ready for the rest of the week ahead. We will also get to our FanDuel Friday later in the episode. And don't forget, if you haven't checked out some of our recent episodes, we have a crossover with Mountaineer Paul. Learned a lot about West Virginia there. Mountaineer Paul, check him out. He's doing great work over there on the West Virginia side of things. We had a bonus episode talking about the injury report. We had our game preview with matchups of the game on yesterday's episode. We have Locked On Big 12 going on. So plenty going on here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Our players to watch in this one. Let's start with the Kansas offense. Daniel Hishaw. He was actually listed as probable on the injury report. Is that worrisome that we didn't know he was dealing with an injury, or maybe does that explain part of why Kansas wasn't able to run the ball against Missouri? And now coming off a bye, he'll be healthier. I don't know. That'll be something maybe we find out a little bit more after the game. But going back to KU's running game and how the offensive line has actually performed pretty well in the running game, there is an onus of things, I think, on the running backs a little bit here, and that's where Hishaw comes in as the senior leader. And interestingly enough, Hishaw's yards after contact are down this year, 2.8 yards after contact per carry. The last 2 years, he was right around the 3.3 mark. Still, though, half a yard less. Is that the difference in KU having that game against Missouri? Probably not, but it just doesn't feel like everything's been totally in sync for whatever reason in the running game for KU. Now, Leipold talked about Daniel Hishaw in his presser earlier this week, kind of being unhappy with his performance against Missouri. And if you do get up an angry, pent-up Daniel Hishaw this week, for a guy who already runs hard and runs with that bit of anger, I'm excited to see what he could do against West Virginia in breaking tackles. And as long as you do it in a controlled aggression, controlled rage, right? KU needs to get the running game going this game and the rest of the season. It's Daniel Hishaw time, and they need him to be that hammer for the offense. We'll see if he can do it this week. Calvin Clements is another guy. I've talked a lot this week about Clements' Pro Football Focus grades. The pass blocking grades not very good right now. Overall on the season, Clements just a 55 overall, 33 pass block on the season. And I will say, if you look at it game by game, it's mostly from the Missouri game. He had a 67 pass block grade or overall grade and a 73 overall grade in the first two games. So those are good. Most of that was carried by the run blocking. His season high for a pass block game is 61. So there still is some question there. And that's a little concerning against a really good West Virginia pass rush and potentially against Jimmori Robinson, who, again, we'll get to later in the segment here. But you're also still talking about a guy here in Calvin Clements, who athletically is still just a sophomore. He's played a hair over 400 snaps, so still, learning on the job, so to speak. He's going to get better and better in his time at KU. And I think back a lot to Bryce Cable do. I mean, offensive linemen can have so much improvement from year 1 to year 5, from year 2 to year 4. Bryce Cabledew had to play as a true freshman at Kansas. I mean, Clements started playing as a true freshman, right? You think about the bowl game he started for KU. Cabledew only had a 50 PFF grade, 49.9 to be exact, as a true freshman. Went up to a 55.6 as a second-year freshman, 57.1 as a third-year guy. That is his fourth year, so his redshirt junior year. He jumped to a 72, and then he got an 80 grade on PFF last year, and now he's an NFL player. Linemen take time. And I think it's a testament to Calvin Clements that he's already to this point where he is the unquestioned guy at left tackle, and he does show some good flashes. That is awesome for him, and I think he's going to be a really good player for KU. And yet, he presents a huge swing spot for this game at West Virginia of how ready are you right now, and how much does the bye week, how much do those first 3 games of experience help you into a game like this? Now, as good as West Virginia's pass rush is, it's, I don't know, man. I guess technically they have more productivity than even the Missouri defensive line, but also like the Missouri defensive line probably has more pros on it. I mean, we talked about this going in that they had 2 defensive linemen who were projected to go in the top like 75 of this upcoming NFL draft. And one of those is a player who's probably going to rise even higher based on his performance already this season in their Georgia transfer. Jimmori Robinson might be a day 2 pick in the NFL draft though. So, it kind of gets close with a little bit there, but that'll be very interesting to see how Clements kind of handles that. But he's going to be a big player. And if he has a big game, I think Kansas wins. Okay, defense for KU. Trey Lathan, former Mountaineer, so makes sense there. A little revenge game here. Been awesome for KU so far. Just 2 missed tackles compared to some places have him at 27 tackles, other 25s. I don't know. But he's going to be tested sideline to sideline and needs to have a big game for KU to slow down, as we talked about earlier. Making tackles important for the KU defense. And then Tommy Dunn. He's coming off a team-high 5 pressures in the Missouri game. He's already got 10 tackles this year. He had 16 all of last season, and he's got a half a sack. His highest PFF grade so far this season was the Missouri game. He's going to have a huge opportunity. Really, all the KU defense tackles. We feel like the KU defense tackles are a strength of this team. Well, go show it in this game, because you look at Pro Football Focus. The starting left guard for West Virginia has a 52.7 PFF grade. The starting center has a 55. The starting right guard has a 47.6. That means this is a great opportunity for a position of strength for KU to try to feast. Go take advantage. Now, West Virginia players to watch. Offense, we're going to start with Cam Vaughn. He's a 6'2 sophomore, blazing receiver on the outside. Already has 12 catches, 204 yards, and a score. Had a really good year last year at Jacksonville State as a freshman. Came over with Rich Rodriguez. And obviously, Kansas has young defensive backs. Also going to be interesting, just DJ Graham start to play more for Kansas as he's been coming back from the injury. He wasn't listed on the injury report for KU either. And does that help them against a guy like Vaughn, who is kind of the unquestioned number 1 target at this point in time? Tye Edwards is the other guy to watch here. 6'2", 225 pounds. If you caught the episode with Mountaineer Paul, he kind of comped him as a runner to Ollie Gordon, which is very high praise, but makes sense. A bigger back with really good acceleration. He had over 1,000 yards on over 6 yards a pop at Northern Iowa last year, and he had 141 with 3 scores in their win against Pittsburgh. He's a really good running back. Kansas has to be good tackling. Kansas had a bigger back with Ahmad Hardy they faced in Missouri, and he broke a lot of tackles and was able to keep the pile moving forward a lot. So will that be good learning experience for KU in this one? Interestingly enough, Kansas actually ranks 16th in the country in negative play percentage on defense. So can you keep that up but limit the big runs, the explosives, the broken tackles, especially against that bigger back who, if he does get in the open field, hard for DBs to bring down with his size and acceleration ability. Defensive side of the ball for West Virginia, let's start with Jimmori Robinson. He is making his West Virginia debut, was ineligible for the first 3 games. He had 43 tackles, 10.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles at UTSA last year. This is maybe the most impressive number to me, though. He had 48 pressures. 48 pressures. Now, it is, playing at UTSA's in the American. That's not, the same level. Doing it at the Big 12, but it's so impressive that it's going to translate. What would that translate to the Big 12? Does it translate to 35 to 40 pressures? I don't know, but either way, that would still be amazing. 48 pressures out of comparison. So last year, Kansas, their leader in pressures was Dean Miller. Second on Kansas last season was Jimmori Robinson. Combined, those 2 players had 48 pressures for the KU defense. Robinson did that all by himself at UTSA last year. When I tell you this guy is an elite pass rusher, that is what I mean. Now, is he going to play full load? Is he going to have fresh legs? Is he going to be in total game shape? Those are all questions that I have no idea the answer to. But this is one of the better pass rushing units in the conference. and so far in the country, and they added a really good player in Jimmori Robinson. So Calvin Clements, we talked about, and then I guess the other tackle for KU, whether it's Enrique Cruz or Nolan Gorsica, they're going to have their hands full against the Mountaineers. And then the last guy here is Fred Perry, 21 tackles, 2 pass deflections, 1 sack, a 91 run defense grade on Pro Football Focus. He's a safety who will come up into the box and he will hit you. And as we talk about Kansas needing to run the ball, that means if you have a safety coming in the box, it's going to be on the tight ends and the running backs to break those tackles from the safety. And in the same vein, Missouri was bringing their safeties up, and they did that well to keep Kansas from running the football. What does Kansas learn from the Missouri tape and the Missouri game to be able to block a guy like Fred Perry who will come up and stick you? Our player matchups of the game, we're going to go with, we're going to call these people matchups for this week. I'll tell you why in a second. But Crahy is the left tackle for West Virginia. Crahy. He's the only West Virginia lineman who is graded above a 65 on Pro Football Focus. He's been solid so far at left tackle. And you look at Kansas, Dean Miller, all Big 12 second team. Leroy Harris has probably been KU's best defensive end to this point in time, the FCS transfer. Miller, obviously, coming off a bye for extra rest after he was injured to begin the season, so getting back in the flow. This is good on good. I think that's going to be a really fun matchup there. And then the other people matchup here, we're going to go Jim Zebrowski versus Zac Alley. So I think these are 2 of the best coordinators in the Big 12. Zebrowski calling the plays, the offensive coordinator, so many fun designs and plays and motions for the KU offense, versus Alley, who is one of the best young defensive coordinators in the business. West Virginia hired him away from Oklahoma, where he was awesome at Oklahoma in 2024. He's been really fun to watch and done really good things with his West Virginia defense early in 2025. So that chess match, I think, is going to be really fun at both ends of this football game. All right, let's finish up with a little FanDuel Friday. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Today's episode of LOJ is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Places like Silas and Maddie's, I love me my ice cream. Terrabun, one of my favorite spots to get a bite to eat in Lawrence. Planet Yellow Sub, that's one of my favorite sandwich shops in Lawrence. Like, those are some of the many favorite places in Lawrence that use Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege. That's square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. Today's episode of the show is also brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Let's go all the way back to the first 3 games of the season, just collectively for Kansas. I think Leroy Harris has really delivered in a big way for Kansas through the first 3 games. I mean, you're talking about somebody who transferred from the FCS level. You didn't know what you were going to get. Was he going to be more of a long-term player for KU? Nope. He's just going to come in and be one of the best defenders so far for Kansas of the season. Getting a bunch of pressures, did so against Missouri. He's racking up production, and it just seems like he is coming through in a big way for the KU defense. And just like Leroy Harris has delivered for the Jayhawks so far through this point of the season, DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked on Jayhawks, and thank you to everydayers catching each and every episode of the show, including all of our action this week. We're checking out Locked on College Football to get you ready as well. So the spread, at least at the time of recording, Kansas is giving up 13.5. The money line is minus 490. West Virginia plus 365. The over-under is 55.5. So quick thoughts on that. That seems like a lot of points, man. You look at some places and it has it closer to 7 to 8 points. I think I'd be taking West Virginia with the points. It's got to be Vegas expecting like a emotional letdown for West Virginia coming into this game. And maybe that is possible. Kansas coming off the bye. I'm not going to bet this, but just hypothetically, like the money line being plus 365 for West Virginia seems high too. if you play this game 4 times, does West Virginia win one of the 4? I kind of think they do. Like, it seems like they're, like, I don't know, Kansas is favored, but like, do they win one of 4? I don't know. It feels like the odds are a little bit off there. So maybe that's a good sign for KU. Maybe that Vegas knows something, right? Over under 55.5. I actually like the under on that, especially now that it got to 55.5. I think at one point it was like 54.5. That covers you at 31-24, for instance, or I don't know, 38-17 or something like that, 34-21. This West Virginia's defense has been really good. We mentioned Zac Alley. Kansas is probably going to put a priority on trying to reestablish the running game. That can run the clock a little bit more. And low-key, the Kansas defense, outside of like just giving up big plays on late downs to Missouri, which West Virginia struggled more on late downs, has been pretty good. So I kind of lean toward the under on this one. In fact, I would probably be taking that bet. Favorite KU prop bet for the game. So I think it's interesting. They've kind of moved up Jalon Daniels' passing numbers. I don't know if that's a game specific thing or like they're trusting what he's doing to this point in time. I look at Sean Hanukkah too, and they've started to raise some of his prices on receiving yards for KU. But if we go back to that running game idea and say that, hey, West Virginia has a really good running attack or run defense, but Kansas is going to want to establish the run. I feel like this is going to be a boom or bust thing. Like either Daniel Hishaw is going to have like 30 rushing yards or he's going to have a big rushing game. You can get him to have 80 plus rushing yards at plus 110. Maybe that's not the worst bet in the world. I also think you can get good value on Tye Edwards. You can get him to rush for 80 yards on his end by plus 104. Just because you haven't seen maybe as much there. And then Jalon Daniels, you can get his rushing yards. You can get, 30 plus at minus 122. I think that's going to be a big part of the KU offense in this game. I wish there was something up here for, like Bryson Canty or Cam Pickett receiving yards. I think, the lack of availability for those guys has kind of taken them off the list there necessarily. But if you're looking at touchdown scores too, like, let's see, is there any value on this list? You can get Levi Wenz plus 170. I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of juice on the touchdown market for KU in this. I guess Daniel Hishaw minus 165, like, feels like he hasn't been somebody who, I don't know, it doesn't feel like Kansas is getting a lot of goal line touches right now. It feels like they've been scoring from just outside the 10, I guess, a lot or something. But I could see this being a game that Hishaw has a touchdown. Minus 165. He was going off at like over minus 200 earlier in the season. And he still is the number one running back. Like, he still is the guy that's going to be getting those carries. So I think that would be one that I'd be looking at too with touchdowns. So the under, the touchdowns, again, if you'd want to take a shot on one of the rushing guys or, we'll see what it closes with some of the receiving numbers or Jalon Daniels rushing yards. Those are the ones that I'm kind of looking at. So choose wisely, bet responsibly, and that is our FanDuel Friday. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. See you next time with LOJ.